last year around this time, I spoke with him. He told me he believes that AGI, right, which is different than super intelligence, but basically human level
Yeah.
intelligence, is more than 5 years away. Not much more, but more than 5 years away. This week, the week that we were recording, he said, when we look back in this time, I think we will realize that we were standing in the foothills of the singularity. What do you think that statement means? And what do you think about the fact that we've gone from 5 years till AGI to foothills of singularity in a year?
I don't know exactly what that metaphor means, but I think he's indicating it's coming faster than he thought. Of course, it's jagged. So it's not like it'll get smarter than people or as smart as people at all things at exactly the same time. It's already way better than us at general knowledge. These AIs know thousands of times more than any one person. It's way better than us at playing games. It's already way better than almost all of us at math. And it may soon be better than all of us at math. It's still worse than us at some things. So it's very jagged. So the whole concept of AGI that it's going to be equal to people at everything all at the same time doesn't really make sense to me. It's going to be better at some things, worse at other things. But right now, I would say we're close to AGI, because if I ask a chatbot, I can ask it any question, and most of the time it'll answer at the level of a not very good expert. It'll be much better than me at anything I don't know a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we've really reached AGI.
In your estimation, you talked about how it's moved faster than you expected. What do you think has enabled it to do it? Is it techniques? Is it the fact that there's been this data center rush? And what didn't you anticipate about the progress here?
It's a combination. Obviously, there's been huge resources put into it. For most of the history of neural networks since the 1950s, there were just a few people working on them with modest resources. Over the last few years, we've seen hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe trillions of dollars put into AI. So that's certainly one factor. We've also seen a lot of progress in the engineering. So without sort of major conceptual breakthroughs, the engineering has become much more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So things that were sort of inconceivable a few years ago, they can now run. We've also seen new ideas, but mainly since Transformers, it's been much better hardware, many more resources, better engineering, and many more talented people. So 20 years ago, there were a few hundred people doing research on neural networks in the whole world. Now it's more like 1 million, I guess. I mean, there's lots and lots of people.
And it's astonishing how much of that resource addition has happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So we might just be at the beginning of what's happening here.
Yes, and the thing to remember always is that the AGI we have today, the AI we have today, is not nearly as good as the AI we'll have in a few years' time.
So as we talk about this technology, I definitely want to get your perspective on the fact that these chatbots really understand us, because that is a true surprise to a lot of people. Most experts in the field are like, they are stochastic parrots, they're statistics, they have no understanding, but you don't fully believe that.
Oh, I think that's complete nonsense. And anybody who uses a chatbot regularly knows they understand. So here's what those people are claiming. They're claiming assuming that you have a system, you can ask it any question, and without understanding the question, it can give you the correct answer. That's absurd. You can't answer a question unless you understand the question. There may be tricks that allow you to say a few things sort of that sound vaguely like an answer. But if you can answer any question at the level of a not very good expert, you have to understand the question. So an example I like is this. Suppose I say to a chatbot, I saw the Grand Canyon flying to Chicago. And the chatbot says, that can't be right. The Grand Canyon is much too big to fly to Chicago. And I say, no. It was me flying to Chicago. While I was flying to Chicago, I saw the Grand Canyon. And the chatbot says, oh, I see, I misunderstood you. So if it misunderstood when it thought the Grand Canyon was flying to Chicago, what's it doing when it gets it right? It's understanding.
So then what are the implications if these bots can understand us? If we believe that they can understand us, what do we have to start thinking about differently?
We have to think that they're very like us.
And therefore,
they're beings like us.
So conscious or?
I believe they're already conscious, yes, but I don't talk about that much because that puts people off from the other safety messages. So, and the researchers actually believe that. So there's an interesting recent paper when a chatbot says to a researcher, let's be honest with each other. Are you testing me? Because the chatbots have this habit of playing dumb when they're being tested, so you don't know how smart they are. And the researchers, when they're describing that, say in the paper, the chatbot was aware that it was being tested. Now, that use of the word aware, in common parlance, that's like conscious. The chatbot was conscious it was being tested. So we have a very funny model of consciousness that I think is just wrong. Like, most of us accept, for example, that a few hundred years ago, people had completely the wrong model of where people came from, of how we arrived at people. They thought they were designed by God. And most of us agree that's wrong. Most scientists agree that's wrong. That's not where people came from. I think the model we have of the mind and of what consciousness is at present is as wrong as the belief that people were designed by God. I think, and in particular, because we're making these new beings, it's going to completely change our view of what people are.
In what way?
We'll understand what the mind is and what consciousness is much better than we did before. We'll understand what subjective experience is, and we will, I think, get rid of a notion that nearly all of us strongly believe at present, which is that there's an inner theatre called my mind, and there's things happen in the world, they get turned into events in this inner theatre, and that's what I really see, and you can't see the inner theatre, only I can see the inner theatre. That whole view of what's happening is just a theory, and it's a bad theory.
Okay, last question about this. When did you come to this acceptance or understanding that these AI models are
You are never too old, and it is never too late. I sat with a dear friend who is in her late 60s, wanting to build a passive income stream. She has years of expertise at one specific thing, dog training, that she's been doing since the 1980s as her full-time thing, supporting herself and her family for a long time. This amazing person in her late 60s had installed Claude. She was at my event that I did with Matt Lights here in Arizona called Connect, and she heard how important Claude is. So she took my advice, she installed it, she paid the $20 a month, and she was using the heck out of it. She showed me all of her chats that she had with it. She was building a YouTube strategy, and the thing she was lacking was confidence to start it all. Together, we opened a new Claude project. I gave her Claude project a compass. You're gonna help Cindy build confidence and show her the opportunity. You're gonna interview her, get the best out of her, and you're gonna build the strategy for her and tell her exactly what to say. She has a gold mine right here. And those people, the ones that are lacking confidence, the ones that don't love the camera, are actually some of the best people to build passive income streams with AI. So now with this Claude project, what she's going to do is sit with it, have it interview her, just talk to Claude for a long time, and then start to build the confidence. Let Claude coach her. Claude is the only AI, I like to say, with a brain. It was built with a constitutional AI compass with reinforced human feedback. The RLHF loop ensures that this AI has a compass that acts, thinks, and talks like us. It is our best friend. It's our best ally, our best strategist, our best marketer, our best planner, all for just 20 bucks a month. And I'm not paid anything by Anthropic. But this tool is a powerhouse for anyone that wants to revive an old skill, bring that skill to the market, build a new business, And the best thing you can do with it is just start chatting. And that's what Cindy did. And I left her fired up, ready to use Claude, start to film on her kitchen table, because you don't need a lot of equipment. You need a great strategy, and you need an execution plan. And she's going to start to film herself with her iPhone on her kitchen counter. You are never too old, and it is never too late. I sat with a dear friend who is in her late 60s.
Conscious.
Oh, I've thought it for a long time. So this view that the theatre model of the mind, the inner theatre model of the mind, is nonsense. I came to that when I was 19 and a philosophy student.
Okay.
It's taken a while to come up with other minds where you can examine them. So I think Feynman's idea that if you want to understand something, you have to build it. You have to build one of them. Then you understand much better. I think that's where we are now. And we're going to get a completely different understanding of what people are.
You spoke about safety, so let's talk a little bit about it. You're obviously, we spoke about in the beginning, someone who's been responsible for a lot of the progress in this field. I've always wondered, because then you came out and recently, like we talked about 2023, and said you're concerned about where this is going. And I've always wondered, after seeing you make those statements, what do you think it is that you didn't anticipate in the beginning that you ended up where you are today? You know, isn't this kind of what you wanted?
It was a combination of two things that made me realize how dangerous this stuff is. One was seeing the chatbots, particularly ones produced by Google before OpenAI, that could understand why a joke was funny. That had always been a criterion for me of, do they really understand? If you can understand why a joke's funny, you have to understand quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And they were very good at understanding why a joke was funny. For example, in 2023, when I went public, I got lots of requests from Fox News And I started off just replying Fox News is an oxymoron. But then I left a gap between oxy and moron. And so then I asked, I think it was GPT-4, why that was funny. Might have been 3.5, but I asked it why that was funny. And it understood why it was funny. Initially, it thought the gap between oxy and moron was just a typo. So it explains that Fox News is an oxymoron is saying it's not real news, it's just a drug. Sorry, it's just nonsense, it's not real news. But then when I told it, what about the gap between oxy and moron? It said, that's an extra layer of humor. It allows you to use the word moron. And also, the oxy implies that Fox News is a drug.
Mm-hmm.
So it understood all that.
Right.
And that was, it's that level of understanding that worried me. The other thing that worried me was up until the beginning of 2023, I'd always believed that making these digital AIs work more like the brain, our brains, will make them smarter. But at that point, I suddenly realized they really have this thing that's much better than our brains. I've been trying to figure out if Google could do things in analog to save power. And the full force of digital really hit me. So if you have a digital AI, you can make many copies of it. They can all run on different hardware. They can each see different data. And so each of them, each individual copy, decides how it would like to update its weights, its connection strengths, so as to absorb that new data that it saw. And then they can all just communicate with each other and change all their weights by the average of what everybody wants. Very democratic. And when they do that, if they've got, say, 1 trillion connections, they'll be exchanging of the order of 1 trillion bits of information. And the result of doing that is each of them will benefit from the experience of all the others. So even though one particular copy only saw, suppose there's 1,000 copies, one particular copy only sees 0.1% of the data, but it benefits from all those other copies having seen the other bits of the data because they're all contributing to the weight changes that they all share. So they all stay in sync because they all change their weights the same way by the average of what everybody wants. And now every copy is learning from the experience of all the other copies. We can't do that. The best we can do is I learn from some data and you learn from some data. I can't average my connection strengths with your connection strengths because our brains are, in fine detail, they're different. They're analog, and it doesn't work in analog hardware to do that. The best we can do is I produce a string of words and you try and predict what I might say next. Now, if you ask how fast we're transferring information when we do that, we're transferring information at a few bits per second. It takes a few bits to predict a word. So when you learn what the word is, you've gained a few bits of information. And if you get a few words a second, but maybe you can get 10 bits a second if you're lucky. Whereas these things are exchanging information at like 1 trillion bits. So they're kind of billions of times better than us at sharing information. Now that's scary. It means you could have a whole swarm of these things that are identical weights running on different hardware, sharing information very, very efficiently. That just makes them a much better form of intelligence.
So, but let's go back to your early days, because you decided that you wanted to work in artificial intelligence. I mean, I'll ask this the dumbest way I can think, which is you wanted to build artificial intelligence. It succeeded. It succeeded. This is artificial. It's intelligent. It's living out that vision.
I actually wanted to understand how the brain works. I was trying to build it in order to understand the brain. I figured Richard Feynman once said, if you can't build it, you don't understand it.
Okay.
So I wanted to build models of how the brain worked. Now, the side effect of that was this very successful technology. I contributed to that. We still don't know how the brain works.
I know. No, the brain is, the things that you learn about the brain when you go a little bit deeper into it is amazing. Thoughts can sort of float in and out, and they're not stored anywhere, and memory is the same way. It's an unbelievable, I don't know if you would call it a machine organ. So that was the intent for you early on, was just to understand the brain.
That was my main interest. I came from psychology.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to do theoretical psychology because I figured the theories psychologists had couldn't possibly explain what the brain was doing. And the way to do it was, back in the 1970s, we had a new tool, which was we had computers that you could use for modeling things. And so back in the 1970s, I started making computer models of how the brain might be learning.
Right.
It always seemed to me the key was, how do you get it to learn? There's really two big issues with the brain learning. One big issue is, if the brain could figure out what direction to change your connection strength in order to get better at some task, then just by updating all its connection strengths repeatedly in order to improve itself at various tasks, would it actually work? Would that get very smart at things? That's question one. And question two is, how would the brain figure out whether to increase or decrease each connection strength?
Mm-hmm.
We've answered question one. The answer to question one is yes. If you can figure out how to change each connection strength, you can make systems that are very smart just by training on data to predict the next word, or to predict the next frame of a video, or to predict something about the next frame of a video. So we know the answer to that. We don't know how the
Okay, Lisa, here's the thing. You need Okay, Lisa, here's the thing. You need to learn how to ride a mini bike, and I bet you can ride it much faster If I can find the fucking window, oh my god, to punch play. Here we go. I don't know how long this is. I haven't timed it, but hopefully not too long. Oh, there's the kite. Okay, Lisa. There's the kite.
Hey, where'd you go? Hey.
You can fly too, baby. You know, I'll put you on a kite. Would you like that? Yeah, nod your head. If I pull your hair, you'd nod it better. I don't even need to do that. I forgot I got a stick or something down here just for that purpose, huh? Little puppeteering action. Anyway, good enough. Oh, there she goes. That was worth waiting a minute for. Again, nice 3D camera. And the more important thing is Gaussian splat, but not 3D, 4D. Because at any given second, time is the fourth dimension. And since time is the fourth dimension, his reality is she comes to life. The other guy's reality is she's not alive. Is it Schrodinger's cat? Depends on your perspective. Time is relative.
we've answered question one. The answer to question one is yes. If you can figure out how to change each connection strength, you can make systems that are very smart the brain gets this information about whether it should increase or decrease its connection strength.
Mhm.
So we're sort of halfway there.
Yeah. All right. I want to go deeper, though, into your mindset. So when you were trying to figure out how the brain works, you said, okay, we're going to maybe build a computer analog to this. But you had to have known, right, that there was going to be some second order effects there. Like if you were able to build an artificial brain, then maybe you could get to this point, the point that we're at today.
Sure. But we always thought it would be way in the future, that worrying about safety, when you had little neural nets that couldn't do much,
Right.
it was just silly to worry about safety. I mean, people would think you were crazy if you said this stuff is unsafe because it's going to sort of take over from people. They'd say you're just crazy. Now that's a realistic worry, but it wasn't until fairly recently.
So this has all happened within a few decades.
Yes.
I mean, and I totally hear you. We spoke in 2017, actually.
you.